Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And speaking of adventure of our lifetime, we're going to go around the globe today to talk to somebody it's actually not even today there, it's tomorrow. And we've got a house full of people. I'm real excited that, number one, my friend Holly Berry is right there, and I'm excited to have her on the show again. Holly, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm good.
And would you like to take the reins and introduce our guests, or at least our first two guests?
I would be happy to. So we are doing for you, our awesome listeners, a Power Up Monday featuring the Passionistas, Amy and Nancy Harrington. And every first and third Monday, they come on to Positive Talk Radio and bring a Passionista with them. And so I will let Amy and Nancy introduce the Passionista today for our Power Up session.
First of all, ladies, welcome to the show. We're so glad you're here.
Always happy to be here. Thanks for having us. Yeah. Happy to be back.
All the time. All the time. Because you bring us some of the most incredible people on the planet. They are so much fun. Tell us how you guys met and what is she to you, as it were, and the Passionistas. See, I said it. I've been practicing.
Whoa. Good job.
That was impressive. I'm impressed. So we're bringing on Kylie Stone, and she's a leadership coach and expert. Hi, Kylie. Hi. And Kylie's coming to us from Australia. And we've been working with Kylie now for several years. We met her when she came and spoke at one of our summits. And then she led a leadership panel on the most recent summit. And we spent last year talking to Kylie almost once a week as she helped us rebrand and launch the sisterhood. So Kylie is very near and dear to us, and one of the original sisters in the sisterhood. So we're really excited to bring her on the show with us today. And Kylie, why don't you tell everyone a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you. Well, firstly, great to see you all. And hi, Kevin, Holly. It is really a joy to be here. As both Nancy and Amy said, we first met now going back before the pandemic, and now here we are on the other side. And my first engagement with the sisters was actually off the back of my Indigenous background and storytelling. So I am a First Nations Aboriginal woman and a descendant of the stolen generation. For those around the world who are not sure what that is, we have a generation of Aboriginal people here who were forcibly removed from their families and for what was deemed to be a better world, to integrate them into society, into education and things like that. And my grandmother was one of those women. And so that's what the stolen generation is. And bizarrely or not, I spent over 30 years in the business of storytelling and media as a director of marketing and strategy and transformation. And it wasn't until I had three children. I've got three children who are now all teenagers. And it wasn't until I really had children and I was challenged in that point where I was in an executive leadership position and I thought, I just can't see how to do this anymore. And organically, I started working on myself about what was my next step and started coaching other women. And it was somebody turned around and said to me, oh, it's really great that you use storytelling and your Indigenous background in the work that you do. And I was like, I did not see that. So one of the things that my approach with leadership has often been called more revolutionary because my intention is to empower anyone, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they do, what age they are, what color their skin, that everyone can be a leader. And I use what I would say is the power of storytelling to really make that possible, so that people can connect with their, with their true purpose and passion in life. That's me.
Come on, somebody go.
There's coming to silence. I mean, and I will say this about Kylie: when, my background was at the studios in entertainment and everything, and I was a leader in that world. But when Nancy and I were doing what we've been doing, I didn't really look at myself as a leader until the very first conversation we ever had with Kylie, where I realized, like, I had been taught this traditional point of view of what leadership was. It was a title, it was staff, it was part of a structure. And when Kylie said what she just said there to us in that first conversation, I was like, oh my God, like, we can be leaders and we don't have to have this traditional view of what that means. And it may sound really obvious to people, but I think there are a lot of people out there that don't realize there are other ways of looking at leadership. And so we are very grateful to Kylie for a million things, but that was the moment, that the very first phone call we ever had with Kylie, Nancy and I got off and said, this meeting Kylie today is a game-changing moment in our course of the Passionistas Project, and it's never been the same since. Thanks to Kylie. So
when I was reading the information you sent over about her before the show, you listed 4 things that she did for the Passionistas, for your brand. And I've actually been able to see, as like a member and like recipient of being part of your platform, some of the changes and following you on social media. I was wondering if I could read the 4 things, and then like for each one, like if any one of you want to talk a little bit about what that actually means, like in real life, tangibly. I think a lot of our listeners are, content creators or small or medium-sized businesses, and it would go a long way for our listeners. So the things they said that they've worked with Kylie on was redefining the purpose of the Passionistas, honing their mission, discovering their ideal member, and building out their brand, which are like 4 points. And I would love to hear a little bit about each one of those if we have time.
Yeah. Kylie, do you want to dive into that?
Well, I think the one that strikes me the most is the aspect of purpose. And I'd be interested in you sharing about what it was that shifted for you as a result. But for me, why that one stands out is because of my experience in connecting people with their actual purpose in life, including myself, by the way. I, like many others, have what we believe purpose to be. Much like anything in life, we've been raised to believe certain things have certain meanings, much like leadership. We've been raised in an era where, leaders are people who are in a particular position, and that's just a default way of looking at the way at leadership. And it was the same with purpose. And when I first, I've been in marketing for and storytelling for, as I said, decades. And it wasn't always front and center. And look, quite frankly, it wasn't until Simon Sinek did his TED Talk, really, that everybody started getting on the buzzword of purpose, right? And now purpose is the buzzword of the heart of everything. Start with your purpose, find your purpose. But I think what tends to happen is there's an illusion to think that purpose is about yourself. What is my purpose? And then people start to try to look within and look at themselves. And that was the biggest lesson for me, was realizing that is not purpose. That's where your passion lies. The purpose is the impact that you have in the world. So it's the experience that somebody else has as a result of being with you. And so I think it was probably nothing more than that when I was sharing with Amy and Nancy, and we were talking about their purpose. And we really started to get into that conversation about what is the impact you're here to have on the women in the world that you're working with, and what do you want them to experience? And that was certainly my experience, ladies. I think that was what, in life, when our attention's on ourselves, that's when we struggle. When our attention is on the impact we want to have in the world and we're connecting with other people, that's when we thrive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that moment, that conversation really led us to an awareness that up until that point, we had been thinking about our businesses. What do we do? What do we offer? You know, what we have a podcast, we have a subscription box, rather than what do the women in our community need from us and how can we serve them? And that mind shift is what changed the whole course of where we went from there, and the path we took into defining our brand and really honing in on the sisterhood.
Yeah, it was
And
a
then-
beautiful oh, sorry, go ahead, Dan. I thought you were done.
Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, I was just going to say, and it was a beautiful experience because Kylie's just so great at digging deep into your soul. Like it's not just like working with a business coach or working with someone who understands storytelling. It's like Kylie will really be like, what are you thinking right now? And what's coming up for you? And it taps into the emotion in a really good way behind finding your purpose, like really making you see, like, why are you doing this? What's the point of this for you, so that you can serve these people? And it's so it's a really deep, incredibly powerful experience. It really, you know, she is a transformational leadership coach, and to me, that's not just about transforming the way you do things, but it's really transforming who you are at the core when you're approaching what your purpose is. And it's very powerful.
Yeah. And I think as far as one of the other points you have, the thing that stuck out for me, and the other defining moment was when we were really working on defining the brand. And it was pretty far into the process at this point. We had done all sorts of exercises about who our audience was and what we were going to offer and who the ideal client was. And we kept getting stuck on this, what sets us apart thing and what makes us different. And there was just this moment of clarity in one conversation, and it was such a like duh moment. We were like, well, what sets us apart is our sisterhood. What everyone always tells us is they wish that they had what we have. And that was the moment we realized that that's what this is all about. It's welcoming people into our sisterhood and giving them the loyalty and the love and the support that we have for each other.
Yeah, and Kylie was very gracious about that too, and was kind of just like the person standing on the platform waiting for the train she knew was coming to pull in. It's like, oh yeah, we're like, Kylie, we figured it out. It's something you said it should be a sisterhood. And she's like, yeah. I was waiting for you to get here. took us 6 months, but yeah.
And then how did that transition or translate into your mission, and what is your mission?
I mean, I think it just made it really clear to us. I mean, again, because the other part of this is the ideal client end, which we can talk about, but Kylie helped us really. I mean, I guess I should address that as we talk about it. So the ideal client is like, who is the perfect, in your community, who is the person that represents the person you're trying to serve. And taking us through that process really opened our eyes to what the women in our community truly need. And we ended up picking 3 ideal clients, because we had one that's more business oriented, one that's more in the world of personal growth, and one that's in the category of social impact. And we realized that there was so much overlap in those 3 ideal clients that our community needed to be about all 3. It couldn't just be a business networking community. It couldn't just be about personal growth. It couldn't just be a, grassroots organization for politics. It had to be this holistic view of who our woman and women are. And I think as a result of that, we were really able to say, what do those ideal clients really need? They're independent women who they have their own businesses, a lot of them, or they're in some transitional phase in their life. where they're an empty nester all of a sudden, or they worked a corporate job and now they want to start that passion project, or they're frustrated by what's happening in the world and they're trying to figure out who they can connect to make a change. And once we knew who those women were and could say they're feeling alone, they're feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling like they don't know where to go to connect with people who are just being authentic and real, and they can just be themselves and express their passions and desires and concerns. And once we focused on that, we were then able to very clearly and somewhat easily say, well, this is what we can give them that would really help them out. So Kylie was so patient, and we did so many months of like getting to that point. And once that cracked open, I mean, Kylie took us to the root of like, what are your 4 key words that define what you do? And, you know, we thought we knew what those 4 words are, but then months of going back and forth on what those 4 words were changed everything. So it really just focused us and really helped us figure out what we could offer people to help make their lives better. You know?
And if you're listening to us right now, you're probably wondering, how do I get those things? So Kylie, can you help tell our listeners where they can connect to get these things that you helped Amy and Nancy create?
Well, firstly, you know, I suppose if anyone is especially in that category as a woman who's out to have an impact in the world, I'd say go to the Passionistas Project, because I'm in there supporting women directly on being able to do this work. In fact, we are launching a program in the next week that is designed specifically to apply the same work that we did with Amy and Nancy on being able to tap into your purpose in a way that allows you to have an impact in the world. And then I think because we are global, I think the easiest place for most people to connect with me is going to be off LinkedIn, because we all know that as a platform. So they're probably the easiest 2 ways to go.
I love it. And I want to give a huge shout out to Alma and Claire. Thanks for tuning in, Alma and Claire. Hi.
They're our newest Passionistas and our new joys to deal with. They're a mother-daughter duo, and they're lovely. We're so glad they're here.
That is so cool, Alma and Claire, that you're able to tune into us live and post a little comment so we can say, hey, hi, from wherever, from Australia, from Washington to where you are at right now. So that is really something special. And then for all of the other people tuning in for the first time that are not familiar with where to find the Passionistas, can you tell them like websites and how to find you and how to get connected to the sisterhood?
Absolutely. So the Passionistasproject.com is the easiest way to find us. You'll find all of our links and socials there. There's also a landing page, passionistasproject.com/positive talk. And that is just exclusively for Positive Talk listeners. And you will find a discount code there and a link to join the sisterhood. And once you join the sisterhood, then you can sign up for Kylie's course that starts in 2 weeks. So as a part of your premium membership includes the course. So, and not only that course, but 5 other courses we're going to be offering this year and all sorts of other really valuable content. So.
And I believe Kylie is one of the people with a course. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. What is your course with Kylie going to be about?
Kylie, you describe it.
Yeah. So the journey, it takes people through the foundational skills of leadership. But I guess let's frame that to say, ultimately, it's about women wanting to have an impact in the world and what are the steps that they need to take. One of the biggest obstacles for many of us is they just don't know the first steps to take. So this really takes people through a very practical set of steps that has you connect with what is it that you deeply want in the world? You know, what is the vision that you have for yourself? What are your core values? Like, how do you want to experience yourself? And then why do you want to do that? You know, we do a very deep session on leading with purpose, which has people very clearly see why they want to do this. And then we unpack a plan and how to put together a series of steps on how they can then go ahead and fulfill on that. And you know, we have circle chats where people can come and ask me all the questions as they go through it. I am going to be doing it live, which is a very different experience for most people because sometimes you go into these programs and you just get a download of a video. But, I think we're going to be doing about five live learning sessions, and then on top of that, 5 really deep coaching sessions. So I'm really looking forward to it, mostly from being able to be available to help women just get that clarity, and being able to pursue the things that's truly important to them.
Okay, I've got a question for you that is a little off, but I can't let you go without talking about your background and who you are and the indigenous people that you came from, and I've been told, and I believe, I don't know if it's true or not, but that the Aborigines originally were very spiritual people, a very grounded people about the world that they lived in and everything. Can you talk a little bit about them and yourself, and I assume that's part of where your storytelling came out, is that was part of your heritage.
Yes. So in short, yes, Aboriginal people are very spiritual. And I think, that has been one of the things that I think has given them the resilience and strength and, self-determination over the many years since they, the disruption and the removal from what was traditionally their land, and not just traditionally their land, but the just these traditional ways, so I think that was certainly what has connected them, kept them strong and resilient. Look, I say that because I think the thing that stands out for me is spiritual in the sense that there is no separation between you and me and us as human beings, that we are all one. And so whenever, for example, even if I am okay in the world and I'm doing good, if there's someone else out there in the world not doing good, then actually I'm not doing good. So I think that to me really communicates, I think, the essence of spirituality is that there is no distance between any of us. For Aboriginal people, it's mostly a deep connection with the land and being at one with the land. And then, yes, we are known to be the traditional originators of storytelling as Indigenous people. It was our way of preserving our culture. It was a way of pretty much sharing knowledge and wisdom for a community of people that have been on the planet for over 40,000 years. And again, I think it was really bizarre that I ended up in the storytelling business. And then, because for me, I was raised as a Western woman, for those of you who cannot see, then you're listening, I'm white and I've got blonde hair and I have blue eyes. And if you see me, you would think that I was a very privileged high society woman. And I say that because I've had many people say that. And then they discover my background. And, my mother was 16 when I was born. I was the first woman in my family, actually in 4 generations, to not be removed from my family. So for me, it wasn't until it was 2017 that my mother asked me if we could go back to country, because stolen generation people were separated from their family. But there was an organisation here in Australia that came together specifically to reconnect that stolen generation with their original family members. And 2017, my mother rang me, "Can you please come with me? I'm going to need support." And I'm like, absolutely. So we went on this trip. It's about 1,000 kilometres northwest of one of the main cities here in Brisbane. And it was an incredible experience, not just for me personally, but to be with my mother as my mother went through that, because my mother really was, I suppose, more closely connected to the impact of her mother being removed, and then she was removed at 5 years old. And so it was kind of a very heartwarming and very emotional experience. But it was following that suddenly this weave of storytelling in what I was doing became more personal and less about business. And that for me really transformed my own experience, but it also transformed the impact that I was able to have with the people that I work with.
That is a great story, and thank you for that. And by the way, what was it like when you went to meet your relatives and they look like they look, and you look like a movie star looks. What was that like?
Well, firstly, that's very kind of you to say about the movie star looks. So, look, I would love to say that it's a good news story, but sadly, it was very traumatic. In fact, there was one point where there was a woman who was a member of our family, and she had come close to where we were located, and we were with the people who were on site doing the introducing us and taking us back. And they'd asked us to sit specifically in this area and allow the other people to come to us. And this woman was standing pretty much maybe 50 meters away. And my mother went over to say hello, and which you know, because she was pointed out, oh, that's your aunt, it's such and such Fisher. So Mum went over and started talking to her. And anyway, on the trip back to Brisbane, we pulled over into this park area and we sat down with the ladies who took us on the tour. Well, I say a tour, but the introductions. And next minute, she's having a conversation with my mother about inappropriate behavior. And I really had to bite my tongue. And I just listened and listened. I went, operating from a place of respect. I don't know where they're coming from. It's not my place to say here, which is a very Indigenous thing to do, by the way. And so then we got back to our place. So we got back to the place we were staying. And I said to my mother, what the heck was that about? And she said, well, it is protocol that for Indigenous people, you do not approach them. And I'm like, really? I said, but she's your family, like she's blood. And she said, it does not matter. She said, because the impact of trauma from that era can really unsettle someone, and there needs to be some conversation had before you just walk up, because you don't know what kind of trauma you're dealing with. And I was really shocked. And so, it's not an easy, I think I would just have to acknowledge that it looks really straightforward and very rewarding, and it certainly is. But for those who are going through that process, it is not easy. And can be a very traumatic experience.
We learn so much when talking to people like you who have got history and experiences that we don't have. I've never heard that story before about the separation and what it's amazing to me what we have done in the past. And I applaud you for being able to talk about it and so that we can move into the future, because I, like you, believe that we are all one and that we are connected to each other. And we need to start acting like it, if you want my humble opinion. That's just me. Ladies?
I was going to ask about NAIDOC, if that's the way they pronounce the acronym, and this might be a good spot for that.
Yes, that's exactly how it's pronounced. The National Aboriginal Indigenous, it's an annual, as an organising committee, it's an annual event that recognises the accomplishments of Aboriginal people. And in 2018, actually, it was the first event in 30 years for the celebration and acknowledgement, the very first time in 30 years. Please forgive the birds in the background if you can hear them. They acknowledged the role that women played in our community. And the theme, every year they have a theme, and that particular year was Because of Her We Can. And it was the year that I was recognised for my contributions to advancing women in leadership, and I received one of the awards for that alongside 12 other Indigenous women in business. It is an extraordinary event. It's one of the biggest events here every year. They get thousands into an arena, and it acknowledges Aboriginal people across all different areas, from sports, from culture, from arts, from business. It's extraordinary.
By the way, Nancy and Amy, since you've been on the red carpet a lot, did you ever run into Tom Selleck?
No, not that I recall.
I don't think so.
What brings up Tom Selleck to you, Kevin?
Well, I think Kylie might have an idea about that. There was a movie about a cowboy who goes down under because he's a sharpshooter, and he was hired by somebody who was played by, I forget his name. He's passed now, but it was a great movie, and but they talk a great deal about the Aborigines and the people and how they lived and the things that they did and how spiritual they were. So that's all. It's a shame that there isn't more out there about a group of people that have been around for 40,000 years. But I'll remember the name of the movie here in a minute. And then
I was just gonna ask. I'm like, I want to see that movie.
Well, I'll be right back with you.
All right, you Google that.
All right, we're gonna Google.
Something Kevin said earlier, it's like about learning these stories. I mean, it is one of the great joys for us of the Passionistas Project is we didn't know about Indigenous rights in Australia. We didn't know about disability rights here. We didn't know about women's rights in India to the level that we've learned them over the years, because the great thing that this has afforded us is the opportunity to connect with amazing women around the world. So we're always so grateful when women like Kylie share her stories with us, and we can learn, and then we can be better advocates for those issues. Like, we don't have to live in Australia to care. Kylie doesn't have to live in the United States to care about what's happening here. We talk about it all the time when we're on the phone with Kylie. She's always asking us what's happening with Roe versus Wade being overturned and the election. And, it's like we live, continents apart and thousands of miles away, but we can still connect and we can learn from each other. And it's one of my favorite things about what we get to do.
Well, and with the sisterhood, I think in the last show you were kind of talking about how it's different than most online social groups, and I'd love you to kind of talk about that again, because that's rare. And just if you would be so kind.
Yeah, I think what really sets us apart is the compassion in the community. I think the women are very open and inclusive and supportive, and you can come and be yourself and be authentic, but you're not judged and criticized. We hear that from women all the time, that they can just come and say what they need to say, and no one's trying to solve them. No one's trying to fix them. No one's going to criticize them. And I think that it's just such a warm and welcoming and loving space. And I think that is what sets us apart from most other, certainly from social media in general, but even a lot of other online communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think the other thing that sets you apart too is there is a real focus on diversity. I think there's very, often when you see communities or hubs come together, which is the design of community in the first place, is to target a particular group. And a lot of women's groups and networking groups are very much about women in business or women in leadership. And whilst that's great because it's forwarding a particular outcome, the thing that's very different about the Passionistas is it's not about what you do. It cuts across all of society, of women from disability, women of Black background, women of, just every single, sector. So it's fundamentally then not about the social conditioning. It really allows you the space to come from, participating as a human being, really, and having the freedom to just really forward whatever it is that you're committed to without any constraint on any of those things.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. Amma and Claire, who are watching, we met them recently. They have an amazing organization called Sister Collective, and they support artists, and especially artists with disabilities, and they themselves are immune compromised. And we had this conversation with them the other day, and we've had this conversation many times with women throughout the course of the Passionistas Project, which is they're told that their stories aren't stories people want to hear. And so many of the women in our community who are Black women or women with disabilities or LGBTQ women are told constantly, like, yeah, nobody really cares to hear about that. And so as a result, when those stories are told, they're told by other people. And we really just want to give people a platform to tell their own stories and to be seen and to be heard. And whether that's to be seen on a podcast or radio show, or there's just to be seen by the other people in the community and heard by the other sisters in the sisterhood, it's a really refreshing thing. And even like women over 50, you know, Nancy and I are women over 50. And it's like, you hit a point, you hear when you're young, oh, women over 50 become invisible. And you're like, ah, yeah, that's crazy. And we do. So to know that we can go into a space where people value our opinion and want to hear what we have to say is really important to us. And I think it's consistently one of the most important pieces of feedback we get is like, we get to tell our own story. So,
and you know, knowledge is power. And if people don't want to hear something because it's uncomfortable for whatever reason, then that doesn't help. That doesn't move anything along. Speaking of knowledge, Holly, the name of the movie is Quigley Down Under.
Oh, Quigley Down Under.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm gonna have to rewatch it. I haven't seen that movie. It's a good one.
It's a really good movie, and they show the Aborigines in a really good light, and they also show how poorly they were treated for a long period of time. So that's Quigley Down Under.
All right.
Shout out to Tom Selleck.
Yes.
Well, and I know for our listeners, so if you are close, you know, friend or family, or you have a close relationship with someone who is either disabled or in a marginalized, group, then one of the things I've noticed personally is their resilience is so much more than, you know, a mainstream stereotype that doesn't have to always be working uphill. And I've always found that really fascinating. And I've always admired that because that's such an incredible core personality like trait to be able to build over time. And I was reading in Kylie's bio that she's now a global ambassador for Driven Resilience. And I would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, I another one of those journeys I went on where my view about resilience was, that it really was about, and certainly how I was raised was, just toughen up, get over yourself, which was kind of how I showed up in the world, was very strong on resilience, bounce backs from everything. But absolutely didn't connect the dots until, again, I did the, exploration work myself to look back at my own journey and discover that indeed, when you confront adversity, then of course what builds is a very strong level of resilience, and it depends on what that adversity is. But what I noticed, it's always paralleled with a real, that kind of resilience is a deep level of compassion, which is very different to, I think, my experience of being raised as a Western woman resilience, which was more about toughening up. But this driven resilience discovery for me, technically in my, my training in work is a researcher. So I think at heart I'm a researcher. And when I get into these spaces, I just go looking for data and research. And I happen to subscribe to a neuroscience. I'm fascinated with the world of neuroscience and how the brain works and how do we connect with purpose. And I came across this gentleman, Jury Rosso, and he's a neuroscientist and psychologist. And he had a deep amount of research in the modern world, which brought in the aspect of health, which was very different to past-based domains of resilience that didn't include things like your sleep, your diet, and exercise. And so I was fascinated with what he was presenting. And so I started as a subscriber to what he was putting out in his material, and then discovered that he was launching this platform to train you in how to become certified in the area of neuroscience. And as I was reading it, I couldn't help but think, this is incredible about how much of what he's presenting feels like exactly what I'm doing, because the other aspect of what he talks about is purpose, and that one of the cornerstones of developing resilience is being very clear about your purpose. So long story short, I went through the certification, became certified in the neuroscience of resilience, mostly with the importance of how do I enable people to connect very powerfully with their purpose. But one of the most surprising benefits and things that I think is often the place that I will always focus on for myself and others is just how important taking care of your own health is when it comes to your ability to create an authentic connection to your true purpose in life. And I'm talking about that kind of connection that potentially, that Dr. Wayne Dwyer would talk about. It really is at the heart of who you are in the world. And the only thing that has you not connect with that is all the distractions in the world. You get up in life and it's all the interactions that you have that kind of dismantle that. And what is it going to take for you to be able to connect with that inner purpose outside of all of that noise? And that's what surprised me, was when you start taking care of your health, when you take out things like sugar, you start movement, self-care, there is a profound expansion in the area of resilience and a connection to purpose. And hence why I just became this, global ambassador. I started doing that when I was in the pandemic. And, right in the thick of everything, Qantas, I don't know if you know, but obviously Qantas is one of the major airlines here, went into massive disruption. I was about to deliver a program on resilience and wellbeing to their executive team. And then they went, shut down. And so that right through that, 6 months later, they said, look, could you please deliver this out to our employees across the world, because they really need help. And after I delivered that, I went back to Yuri and I said, look, what are we got to do? How can I support the mission and be available to, provide people with access to this kind of information to help them through this really difficult time?
That is incredible. Yeah, go, Kevin, go. We're starting to get to the end of the hour, so I'd love Kevin to drive from here.
I need to ask you, you're an incredible person, an incredible human being. How did you get to be where you are, so that somebody who would like to be like you, or to work and be passionate about what they're doing with drive and with purpose, how do they get there? Because you're on your way. You're nowhere near where you're going to end up, but you're on your way. Does that make sense?
Well, thank you. And a couple of things I would say is, first and foremost, at an individual level, to anyone who is listening and how, I think the most important realization at some point that I got was that everything I do and everything I say matters. It doesn't matter where I'm at in my journey. There is no fixed state. It's not like I just get somewhere. And I've been doing this now for 30 years. So, and you should know my life does not look perfect on a day-to-day basis. Anyone who's also here with teenagers would know that every day is a challenge. But I think if I look at the heart of it, no matter where you are in your journey, every little action you take matters. And I think when we look at it from that place, then we just, the second thing that made a difference and still makes a difference to me is to then follow that up with trusting myself to make the right decision about what's next for me, not worrying about what I think is the right next decision based on what, in the world, what difference I would make and what's needed out there, but no, what'll make the biggest difference where I am, and to trust that whatever decision I make is the best decision for me. And thirdly, I'd say, do not, notice when you compare yourself to others and simply let it go. Now, I would never say don't compare yourself to others, because that's just part of our wiring. Every one of us has an automatic response in our thought patterns that has us operate in a world where we want to be better, do better, see better. And as a result of that, what's automatic is we go looking for what's out in the world and how do I want to show up and how do I want to be. That's not a bad thing if you can tap into what it is that's going to inspire you. At one point I wanted to be like Pink because I wanted to be as brave and courageous as her. And that gave me a source of inspiration, right? And if you look back on my photos about 5 years ago, I even had the same hairstyle. And so it's a great thing to do that. But the second you start doing it and then you start judging where you're at on that journey, that's where it becomes a concern. So simply acknowledge it and then let it go and trust yourself, because everything you do where you are right now matters.
you just said my favorite word in the entire English language, which is trust. Trust in who you are. Trust in where you're going. Trust your intuition, because your intuition will tell you things that'll just kind of happen. The three of you got together because of you were brought together so that you could help each other out, and so that the Passionistas, hey, 2 in a row, the Passionistas can do the work that they came here to do. And I think it's just wonderful that you guys are taking that role and helping people of all stripes, men, women, doesn't matter, and whatever color and stuff. So congratulations. We're going to run out of time, so we want to make sure that we get enough time for everybody to find out how they can get a hold of both Kylie and also the all right. I can't do 3 in a row.
Almost had it 3 times in a row.
The Passionistas. How do they get to you?
Kylie, go ahead.
Well, I think especially in the next couple of weeks, I'd say go to the Passionistas Project, because you will find me also in there, and we are leading a program. And so I think it's the easy access to follow through on this is to help you fulfill on that. And globally, I think the easiest place to connect directly with me is going to be off LinkedIn. Just type in my name. I'm pretty sure I'm the only Kylie Stone with a double E.
Excellent.
Perfect.
And as for us, you can type in the passionistasproject.com/positive talk, and you will be taken to the Positive Talk landing page where you'll find a discount code. I think it's PTR20 to get a discount on your membership, and then you can reach us. You can see Kylie's class. You can take Kylie's class. You can interact with all the women in the Passionista Sisterhood. And you can also find us on social as well, the Passionistas Project.
And before we go, and we've done it alphabetically from backwards to frontwards, from frontwards to backwards. This time we're going to do it clockwise. So we'll do a clockwise. I'd like each of you to mention or to say anything that's on your heart that can help somebody else today. I guess we're going to start with you, Holly.
Okay, I was just like, dear Lord, let the screen look the same to everyone. I would love to invite you, our dear listeners, back every first and third Monday for Power Up with the Passionistas. And you can catch us live on YouTube. There's a few other places, but live on YouTube is where we will watch for your comments and questions so we can do shout outs for you.
Am I next?
You're next, Amy.
All right. Well, I just want to say there are few people. We've met a lot of amazing people. We've been impacted by a lot of amazing people. There are few people who have had as profound an impact on us as Kylie has had. And she has become a dear friend in the midst of it. And so I would encourage everybody, whether it's through the Passionistas Project, which would be incredible, but even if it's just directly to Kylie, do yourself a favor and get to know Kylie Stone, because she is brilliant, she is kind, and she is changing the world. And someday people are going to refer to the Australian Oprah, and we're going to say, oh yeah, that's our friend Kylie. We remember when she told us that she was going to be the Australian Oprah, and now she is. So do yourself a favor, listen to her podcast, and connect with her.
Absolutely. And I would like to reinforce that by saying Kylie's course is transformational. And if you can come and take the course, you will not be sorry. You will learn to ignite your purpose, to ignite your passion, find your purpose, achieve your goals, and so much more. And I can't say enough about it. So I hope that you will join us all on May 23rd.
Well, looks like I'm the last one to go. How good. So I actually just want to say something off the topic of Positive Talk Radio, which I'd like to say, well done, Kevin. Firstly, I think so much of this is needed in the world. And in that framing, I would say, no matter really on a day-to-day basis, what you're dealing with, what you're up against, what you're committed to, you'll have good days, you have bad days. But it is always, I think, one of the most profound things I still to this day say to myself, is this too shall pass? This too shall pass. And so too the highs. And the highs come, the lows come, they all go. And, you're not alone. It's often the case that when we look at our circumstances in our life, and I look at what I deal with on a day-to-day basis, those challenges can make me feel like I'm alone. And why is it only me that's dealing with this? Like, is there something inherently wrong with the way that I'm doing life? And then I look at the impact I'm having in the world, and I paradoxically challenge myself, and how are you even doing that? And your life looks like this. And I've come to learn in all these years, even when I step on stage and talk, that the moment just before I get on stage, I'm a basket case. It's like fear-ridden anxiety. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, hold on, that's just your automatic brain going off. It's telling you that you're sabotaging yourself and blah, 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 blah. There is not a single person on the planet, I don't care how amazing we look and who we are in the world, and how amazing we all are, that everyone has their own stories, and everyone is challenged on a day-to-day basis with how they go about life. So really trust yourself, be generous with yourself, love yourself, because when you can bring that to yourself, honest to goodness, you get it back in spades. So thank you.
And by the way, Art and says thank you. No, that's not Art, but they say thank you for a wonderful and inspiring conversation. So, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate you being here and participating with us in that way. That's just awesome. If I could say one thing, and that is only from my perspective, the only time that you will ever lose is if you quit. So never quit. Follow your heart, believe in who you are, and never quit. Anybody have anything else to add to that? Ha ha.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Yeah.
I never had a mic drop before. That would be, we're not. And by the way, before we go, we got to talk about the Uncharted Leaders podcast.
Thank you.
Congratulations on doing that. You know how much fun it is to do a podcast. I do, and it's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. I experience no matter what. Every time I get on and have a conversation with someone else, I am enthralled and curious, and it's a joy to hear other people tell their story. And I started it just before the pandemic, bizarrely enough, and it was perfectly timed, because what else do you do when you've got to be locked up? So it was great. But one of the things I love about it is being able to connect with people all over the world. So I've had guests on the podcast from over in the US, from the UK, and New Zealand, and all over the place. And my mission, simply put, is to have people hear stories that allow them to see that leadership, we're all in an uncharted territory. Being a leader is somebody who does walk courageously into the unknown. It's not like they have all the answers. And in hearing stories like that, my intention is to inspire people to see that really anything that they do to take a step forward towards that for themselves, they can experience being a leader, whether they ever decide to go into a company and take on a role of leadership, or whether they do step into an organization and take on a role, that it comes down to you being courageous in the steps that you take to connect with your purpose and follow your heart.
Holly, this is so much fun. Thank you for bringing all of these wonderful people to us. I really appreciate it. And you are responsible. That is the one thing that I think that we don't take responsibility for our own actions enough, because Holly made this happen today. This has been a great conversation. It's been wonderful. I want to thank Amy and Nancy for being here, but Holly's the one who put it together, and she should take a lot of pride in that. And I want to thank you publicly, loudly, and often for that, Holly.
I want to give another shout out to Alma and Claire. I feel like I'm starting to get to know you, even though we've never got to directly interact yet. So soon. Thanks.
You're going to love them. They're doing our podcast this Wednesday, so you can tune into our Passionistas Project podcast, and you can learn more about them and ask them any questions you have.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Let's go around one more time to make sure we get the information out for everybody so that people can find you, because you can help them. So, Amy and Nancy?
It's thepassionistasproject.com/positive talk.
And young lady?
Kylie Stone, that's KYLEE. Get me on LinkedIn and the Uncharted Leader podcast.
And that is perfect. Holly, anything else you'd like to add?
We go live on YouTube at YouTube/Positive Talk Radio. And that's how Alma and Claire were able to find us today and hang out with us for the hour.
And by the way, since I have just 1 minute, last week we did an interview with a 21-year-old man who is married, just got married last year. He's got stage 4 terminal cancer. And I highly suggest, I would implore you, go watch that episode. That is on YouTube. And there is a place where, if you find it in your heart to help them, he's only 21 and they have got a lot of expenses, and they're worried about, a funeral, and I can't imagine, and all that. But go listen to that. And if you find it in your heart, there's a GoFundMe page link that you can leave a little bit of money for them. It's something that I would love for you to do. So that's it. So I want to thank you, ladies, again for being here. And we didn't suck too badly, did we?
Never.
It was awesome, as always. We're so grateful to both of you for having us twice a month.
Thank you so much.
You make it so much fun. And all you guys, one of these days we're gonna have to find another guy who can show up too, but that's okay.
Maybe.
perhaps not. Again, thank you everybody for being here.
Thanks.
Thank you both. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin@kmmedia.pro.